producers, and he's a dope MC. And DITC in general, I think, is really underrated. And Big L came out with an album that year, Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous, which Diamond D did production on. Mm-hmm. And Stunts, Spunts, and Hip Hop did not come out in 95. They came out before that. But what year was that?
I believe that's 94.
Okay, 94. But Diamond D, I'm going to put in there because you already used Havoc. But of course, Havoc's production on The Infamous is ridiculous, and he should definitely be in the top 3, but you already meant that. So,
well, no, I mean, I feel like if you feel like you have to say him, because I think it's good to have repeat people just to let people know how much you value that person.
Well, I'll say this. Havoc was my number 2 on my list. I improvised as we're going along, and I want to include Diamond D on this list, so I'm going to put Diamond D on there.
All right.
That wraps up
it is. We got the top spot.
Well, it wraps up the 2 and 3. So my number 1, man, I had to go with RZA Razor Sharp, Resurrector. He killed this year. I mean, 95 was basically Wu-Tang just onslaught competition. Remember, RZA had 3 classic albums this year. Like, that's unbelievable. You know what I'm saying? So, I gotta go RZA.
My number 1 is RZA. I mean, there's no escaping. I mean, 95. I mean, obviously, 36 Chambers had come out prior to it. But as far as the solo albums, I mean, wow. It was his time. It was his year. I mean, everyone from Ray, RZA, himself. RZA, number 1. Definitely best producer, 95.
This one's going to be unanimous, fellas, because there's I can't see if you're a hip-hop head saying anyone but the Resurrector for 1995, because it's by a landslide. It's really not close for 1995 because you got Raekwon and Ghost only built for Cuban Links. You got Liquid Swords, and you have ODB, Return of 36 Chambers. He did production on all of those albums for almost every track.
Right.
I mean, it's not close. It's really like I've never seen a producer own a year, maybe more ever.
Yeah.
If you could say like one producer to own 1 year, then RZA 95 might be number 1 of any year that we can talk about in hip hop.
I believe,
yeah.
Maybe like Dre when the Chronic came out, with 93 or something. But
with Doggy Style as well.
Yeah, and Doggy Style, right.
But I would still take RZA at 95 over that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, not Dre, but that wasn't Dre's year.
That's a good example, but to contest it. But I don't
just
think
ran
that those three Wu-Tang solo records that he was basically like, they talk about athletes that are in a zone, like motherfucking Allen Iverson 2000, 2001, when he was, took the Sixers on his back to the championship. That's RZA in 95, basically.
No doubt.
That's what he did.
All right.
No doubt.
That's unanimous. Wow.
Adjourned. So we'll slide into the next topic, which we'll go with our top 3, our best groups of 1995. And this takes you back too, man, when we had groups.
Yeah.
Like I can't name any group right now that I like in 2015. It's all about just a bunch of solo artists, and we had so many good groups in 95 alone. So my number 3 group was, I don't know if you guys got this on your list, but I couldn't front on them. My taste changed later as I got older. But I'm thinking in my 95 mind, I had to go with Bone Thugs. Man. Like, they were so different than what we were hearing at the time with the same rap. And you can even contribute a lot of this stuff that's going on now, like A$AP Rocky and Drake. I mean, without Bone, I don't think you have those type of artists that are willing to sing on the track and rap and mix it up and all of that stuff. So, yeah, man, I got to go Bone, man. Salute to Katie Frederick. and Lorenzo, because they the 2 biggest Bone fans I know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was definitely the breakout year. I mean, they had an EP prior to that, but until that first official album dropped, I mean, it put them on the map. And like you said, it wasn't East Coast.
Right.
Certainly not.
Right.
And it wasn't West Coast.
Nope.
And
couldn't put your finger on it.
Yeah, that was. I mean, I remember buying them cassette singles. I mean, yeah, definitely. They're definitely up there. I mean, my third best group would be The Roots out of Philadelphia. It's hard to not love them so much, and I can't believe they're not my number one. But at the time, they were still perfecting their sounds, and commercially, they really weren't selling that many albums. But Do You Want More did drop in '95, and the jazz influence on that was like nothing else in hip hop at the time. It was just so funky with the live band.
Heavy.
But yeah, it's my number 3. I mean, so impactful, and I wish they kept that jazz part of their sound that they don't have anymore. That made them great, but 20 years ago, and that's my number 3.
Yeah. You can always go back to that when you want to.
The reason I laughed as soon as you said Bone Thugs is because it's right here on my paper, number 3, Bone Thugs and Harmony. So that's the second one that we've agreed not only on the list but on the number, because you had Havoc as your number 2 producer and so did I, and you had Bone Thugs as your number 3 group and so did I. But yeah, I was just thinking about it. You said it well, actually, because right now we look back and it's like, yeah, Bone Thugs, are they in my top 3 groups for 95? Probably not, but put yourself back in that 95 mode where you're 12 years old and the Crossroads came out.
Right.
You're playing that shit like 3 times a day, every fucking day. Like, and you're watching the music video and you're requesting it on the box.
It's still good.
And you're watching it on MTV. So, because I was in Ocean City at the time over that summer, and the box was shit. In Philly, they had the box, right?
Still? We had it, but it was Urban Expressions.
Yeah, it came late.
So for people who don't know what the box was, you call up the number, and you request the music video, and you wait there like a fucking idiot until your video comes on, and then you can say, oh shit, I was the one who requested this, and the music video came on. But Bone Thugs, to me, is my number 3. E1999 Eternal, when that album came out, like we talked about earlier, I didn't even know that DJ Premier made the beat for First of the Month, but you know, from First of the Month to the Crossroads to Blood Smokers Only, I mean, you can play that album straight through and just enjoy it, and it kind of brings you back, and you kind of just like smile when you just remember that summer and that year. It just brings back good feelings, and that's why Bone Thugs is my number 3 for 95.
And I hate, like the Cardinal said, we hate to talk about his record sales because we don't like to glorify that. But they did that on top of everything else we just said.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus, man. So even like you said, the Creeping on the Come Up EP was so crazy.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like their official stamp to being a major player in music.
Right.
Period. So we can slide on to our number 2 groups, and for me, I had to go Mobb Deep, number 2 for me. This was tough, man, because this is probably the toughest one for me, because it was so many groups I liked, and you know, the Roots, the Far Side, you know, it was just a lot of stuff to choose from, and I had to go Mobb Deep because, like, once again, I feel like they had their own niche in '95. With that Havoc sound. Prodigy was so dope, you know, from 95 to like 98, I think Prodigy was the top 5 MC. I said it before on this podcast. Anybody who was listening to rap, Prodigy was right with Biggie, he was right with Nas, you know, he was right with those guys at that time, and so I gotta go with Mobb Deep as my number 2.
Okay. My number 2 for groups is pretty much, I determined this pick being I Center of Attention just on how many plays it got from start to finish, and honestly, for being an album that was shelved originally is a sin. I mean, when you talk about Pete Rock producing it, Grap Lover and Rabo, I mean, Elektra signed them, they dropped a single, No Faking Jacks, they had the video. I mean, obviously, Pete Rock is coming off many projects along with the CL, but I mean, this was something very personal to him. It got shelved, and yet the album still leaked. People still listen to it, and from start to finish, I mean, it's one of my favorite albums all time. And as far as groups going, I mean, they're my number 2. So if you hadn't heard that album in full, definitely go check Center of Attention out.
I got a cosign on that. So I Center of Attention. So that record was released in '95? Wow. Okay. that changes some shit for me. I mean, let me just
hold on. I had to step out. What just happened here?
My number 2 was Center of Attention, which was released in '95.
Well,
the groups.
We're doing groups right now. So it's I.
Oh, I. Oh, whoa.
So people that aren't familiar with that album are really blessed to be listening right now in a way, because you need to go out and fucking find that however you can, because it really is one of the most underrated hip-hop albums I would say ever. We got Pete Rock on production, and his younger brother Graplova was one of the more underrated MCs. The album was like perfection, I think. I mean, you can play it from start to finish, top to bottom. You don't have to skip a track. Album's incredible. So I'm glad you brought that up, Fisher. I is most definitely a very good inclusion on this list. Number 2 for me was The Far Side for 1995.
Oh, yeah.
The Far Side, as far as West Coast hip hop at that time in '95, like maybe like Death Row Records and Dre and Snoop were getting more attention, but Far Side was more on that laid back, if you want to label it hippie shit, whatever you want to say, but they were more of like, look, we're not gangster rappers, we're having fun, we enjoy doing this shit. And Lab Cab came out that year, and we'll talk about that later, but The Far Side to me in '95, to leave them off the top 3 groups list would be an injustice, so I gotta have Far Side on there, but I really like the inclusion of I by Fish on there.
Okay, man, so we're on number 2 or 1? We're on 1. Okay, so my one is I picked a group that didn't have a group album this year, but I just couldn't deny, what they were putting out in the air. You know what I mean? So
I mean, they gotta have an album out.
Well, I mean,
are you gonna do this again? Are you gonna steal my number 1? This is the 3rd time that we're gonna have the same shit.
Next time you're gonna go. You can go first. So listeners don't think you're jacking my faces.
This podcast that you go first every time is what I was trying to say, and you justified it somehow where I flipped. I was like, yeah, you're right. But no, it should go in a draft order, like a fantasy draft. That way, you don't get to say your shit every time for it. But
you can start.
It's fine.
Yeah. I'm kidding.
So yeah,
you're gonna say Wu-Tang right now.
I had to go Wu-Tang.
Yeah, I know you're gonna fuck with Wu-Tang.
It was so good in '95 that they didn't even have a group album, and it's still the best group. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think my argument is that they have 3 solo albums, and a lot of those albums had a lot of the group members in it.
Right.
So I just couldn't deny the Wu-Tang influence. Period.
Right, and I mean, I'll continue off yours. I mean, Ray being on the Mobb Deep's album, which is my number 1, the best group was Mobb Deep, only because you have one of the best lyricists combined with Havoc being one of the best producers together in the same group. When you have people like Nas and Raekwon on your album, I mean, they've got to be the best group. I mean, they just connected with everyone who was big at that time.
Yeah.
From Wu-Tang to Nas.
Verbal intercourse.
Back to their own production. This is what you're talking about, one of the groups where you're talking about has one of the best MC producers inside the group. We're not talking about strictly MC, strictly producer. This is a tag team duo who is the best group of '95.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, man.
All right. Well, I'm tripping for two reasons right now. Number 1 being that right before we started this podcast, Fisher, who just spoke eloquently about how dope Mobb Deep is, said he's leaving the Infamous off of his list.
I did. The Infamous is off the list. I'm saying for
crazy.
Albums, I'm saying groups. Best group is Mobb Deep, and it's on my list. So
those 2 things.
I mean, it's written down.
Yeah, that kind of okay.
It's written down right here.
Okay.
And then me and BC agreeing for the 3rd time, not only on who's on the list, but the exact order, is making this podcast kind of boring. You might as well just get one of our takes. But I have Wu-Tang Clan also as my number 1 group of '95, because it's like, how could you not, from Only Built for Cuban Links to Liquid Swords to Return of the 36 with ODB, and then you had just come off of Enter the 36, Enter the Wu-Tang, You know,
Cal.
that's not 95, but
was
was that released in 92?
No, when it was
it 93?
To Cal. End of 36 was 93.
93.